Hey guys, Roman Alien Reaper here. So yep, I'm outside the cinema, and the moment I've been waiting for is finally here. Yep, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. One of my most anticipated films of the year. I absolutely adore this franchise. It has just gone from strength to strength in its last few installments. Fallout especially just being the absolute peak, one of the best action movies ever. So I can only hope that Tom Movies has rounded this thing off with a bang. 8 missions, nearly 30 years. Let's go. But the only way to find out is to get in, get some snacks, and get seated for the final reckoning. This is it. Here we go. So yeah, I've got my popcorn here and a red frozen Fanta, the colour of one half of the cruciform key, ready for Ethan Hunt's final mission. So, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. This is once again directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who's built up a pretty great working relationship with Tom Cruise. This is their fourth Mission Impossible film together, and they've worked on plenty of other films outside the franchise, including Top Gun Maverick and Jack Reacher. So obviously we are in a very trustworthy pair of hands to deliver the seemingly final installment to the franchise, the big send-off to 30 years of Tom Cruise playing Ethan Hunt. So, I had a lot of faith in Cruise and McQuarrie that they would be able to deliver that final touchdown and end the franchise on a high. But is this a satisfying send-off to the Mission Impossible franchise? Let's find out. So the film picks up right where Dead Reckoning left off, with Ethan Hunt on a mission to find the Sevastopol and the source code of the entity to kill it once and for all. However, this mission comes with risks of its own, and if he succeeds in doing so, could potentially destroy the entire cyberspace and lead to the whole world going dark. And so, with the fate of the whole world at stake, and with old foe Gabriel right on his tail, Ethan and his IMF team find themselves up against the clock to prevent the end of everything that they hold near and dear. So, over the course of his career, Tom Cruise has done some pretty insane things, especially for the Mission Impossible franchise. This is a man who has climbed the world's tallest building. This is a man who hung onto a plane in midair. This is a man who broke his ankle and kept going. But, bringing his premier film franchise to a close, yeah, this is the most insane stunt that Tom Cruise has ever done. And I gotta say, mission accomplished. Yeah, this may not be the franchise's strongest entry, but it is a goddamn satisfying close. Now, I do have to get my sort of one issue out of the way, and that is the first hour. I think it's maybe been slightly overstated how slow it is, but yeah, it does almost threaten to buckle under the weight of that's just the sheer scale of its narrative, because it gets quite dense with, so much exposition, so much setup, so many characters to introduce, so many callbacks to earlier films that, yeah, that it almost collapses under its own weight. But it is incredibly necessary, because not only are there are important setups during that hour, but after that first hour, the film locks the fuck in big time with a absolutely jaw-dropping, insane set piece in a submarine. This is very much the payoff to an hour's worth of build-up. With some smaller set pieces in there to sort of keep the momentum of, the global stakes of its epic scale Cold War thriller going. That submarine sequence is just the heart racing release. And again, it's been stated many a time before by myself and others, but Tom Cruise has genuinely lost his mind. And from there, the film really kicks into gear, as the stakes really set in. It is, incredibly gripping stuff throughout for that remaining, like, near enough 2 hours. So, yeah, the first hour is more than worth getting through that. And of course, keeping things engaging, we have, a big ensemble cast, obviously led by Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. He's great once again. There's that interesting thing across the franchise of, sort of exploring Ethan's moral judgment, and very much how that's affected with, the literal fate of the world hanging on his shoulders. Yeah, he is fantastic. Of course, rounding out the IMF crew, we've got, Haley Atwell back as Grace. Once a foiled Ethan, now a close companion. I very much enjoyed their relationship. They have great chemistry together. We also have Ving Rhames as Luther, Ethan's closest friend across the whole franchise, who actually gets some really touching emotional scenes. Simon Pegg as Benji, who is one of the film's highlights. He gets a sort of beefed up role this time, leading his own IMF crew. So he is very, very important, and yeah, Pegg really sells it, but he also gets some very funny moments with some great timing and deliveries, because, of course, it's Simon Pegg, man. Rounding out the crew, we've also got Pom Klementieff as Paris, who gets a bit more dialogue this time. It's very interesting, her whole thing, her whole nature of killing. We also have Greg Tarzan Davis as Dega, very much building on his whole thing of how, no one should have that kind of power to control the entity. Of course, rounding out this big ensemble, we've got obviously Henry Czerny back as Kittredge, very much a rival to Ethan once again. We also have Shea Wiggum, the man who is in everything, sneakily, as Jasper Briggs, who gets a slightly deeper build to his character this time. Now, build on his character in a very interesting way. We have Angela Bassett back from Fallout, this time now the president. And yeah, she does the thing. She's great, really sells, what it's like, how she thinks and acts with, the whole world watching. And of course, in smaller roles, we also have the likes of Holt McElhenney, Mark Gatiss, Nick Offerman, Katie O'Brien, and a standout in Tremel Tillman. Yeah, he is an absolute hoot. He's great fun. Unfortunately, the weak link of it all is Gabriel. Yeah, it was one of my issues with Dead Reckoning, and yeah, he's an issue here as well. I think the threat he does pose in theory is interesting, and Isai Morales, to his credit, is really trying to bring life to this character, but there's just not that much to him, unfortunately. Really, the gripping threat is the invisible one, the entity. And it is, the sort of through line of the growing danger of that threat and how this big ensemble navigates it. Yeah, that is what makes this film so engaging to watch for that, remaining 2 acts. And to its credit, that scope is brought to life wonderfully. The cinematography is great, in Macquarie fashion. The action is navigated with laser focus, and there's some cool seamless transitions and some absolutely gorgeous uses of color. It's paired up really nicely with some really well done invisible CGI, because of course no CGI is invisible CGI, and plus there are tons of visual effects artists credited. And we also have a score by Max Aruj and Alfie Godfrey, filling in for Lorne Balfe, and yeah, they really do not miss a beat. Their score is great. And of course, the film just comes into its own in the final act. My god, this is, non-stop, edge of your seat, pulse racing, tense spectacle. And oh my god, if the first hour is, not exactly the franchise at its finest hour, this is the franchise at some of its highest highs. Oh my god. My heart was racing throughout the whole final act. My palms were sweating. Like, seriously, man, that whole, like, biplane scene, like, what you've seen of it in the trailers is only scratching the surface. Oh my god. Yeah, it is an absolute wild ride of pure glorious spectacle. And it's also very emotionally resonant with some really touching and well delivered emotional beats that, really send the franchise off on a high. It is really, really well done. A very satisfying end because, well, in a rare sight outside of Minecraft, the audience of my packed out showing applauded. Yeah, and I gotta admit, I joined in because, well, yeah, if this is the end of the franchise, I'm very happy that that this is the one we got. Overall, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning may not quite reach the heights of the sheer brilliance of some of the franchise's earlier entries, but once it finds its footing, it is an incredibly strong finale to the franchise that delivers everything you could possibly want. See this on the biggest screen you can. Out of 10, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning gets an 8.5. So yeah, let me know down in the comments. Have you seen The Final Reckoning? What did you think of it? What did you make of it as an ending to the franchise? And what is your favorite entry? And how long do you think it's gonna be before someone inevitably reboots the whole thing? Let me know all that down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new, and don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload.